in some ways, it seems like the focus of 2025 in this session and our budget that we're working on in the biennium is to focus on children, right? Is to focus on families with children. And so first, I want to commend the governor for his proposed budget, which made a huge investment in childcare, for example. And we're going to work through that idea, and Representative Farrar and Representative Walker and others, we're going to continue to look at that and what that may mean. But I think what you can see from the executive and the legislative branch, and we have bipartisan support here today, is people feel more strongly than ever that the state needs to do more to help our families. And it's not just childcare, as the Senate President alluded to, it is also things like the child tax credit. What struck me the most, if you look at the statistics, and Congresswoman DeLore was one of the leaders of this in Washington, when the federal government provided the largest child tax credit in, I believe, the history of our country a few years ago, right after the pandemic, it was the single largest decrease in childhood poverty in the history of our country. The single largest decrease in childhood poverty. Those kind of investments make a big deal. And I've sort of said and been working very closely with Chairwoman Horn, who chairs our Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee, and she's looking at all these things, and she's got a lot to balance and a lot to consider. And it's a tough job and a lot of pressure with a lot of demands and a lot of asks. But sometimes the credits that we provide as government are not seen and are not felt the way we want them to. The beauty of the child tax credit, and we did it a few years ago here in Connecticut, is we mailed checks to families, and they received them and said, "What is this for?" And right, it's the government investing in you to give you a little bit of a help, to give you a bit of not a handout, but to give you help and assistance as you raise your families, which with inflation becomes more difficult. And as Marty said, if you look what's happening in Washington, they're thinking the exact opposite. Instead of providing credits and help to families who are trying to raise 2 young children, they're going to provide tax breaks to the wealthiest among us. So in the entire country, which is sort of shocking to think about. So this is another idea. It doesn't solve it by itself. It's not going to eliminate poverty. It's not going to make families all of a sudden go from one tax bracket to another. But what it's going to do is it's going to help a lot of people. And it's also going to show that government is investing in all of our citizens, cares about them, and particularly cares about their children. So if we could leave 2025 with major investments in childcare and our families, I think that'd be a very successful session. So I appreciate everybody being here, all the advocates from House Dems and Senate Dems and Senate Republicans. And if there's a House Republican, you're welcome too. And we look forward to seeing where the public hearing goes. Thank you.